Welcome to the 342nd Council. I want to give people an opportunity to speak. If residents' comments, please identify yourself by name and street, and know that we are recording. Anyone have comments, Bonnie? Do you want to stand up at the podium?
My name is Bonnie Ball, and I live on I started to say Thornapple, but I've lived there too, on Summit Avenue. I'm sure all of you all are aware we have a massive undertaking going on Summit Avenue double lot, which is none of my affair. Whatever they do with that is okay, and we'll suffer through the tree situation as best we can. My concern here tonight is that the last time I came to a meeting, I asked for us as a council and residents to have a meeting before this project began with the developers. It was discussed and agreed that that would happen. I checked once with Matt and with other neighbors, and all we were told was a chimney would be moved. And from that point until now, there were no communications. And I checked with the Brotmans next door to me, whose property abuts theirs. They were given no notification. No one came to visit them, nothing. We saw, I didn't, I was out of the country, but my husband spoke with a woman, Matt, you may know who it is, who is heading the project. He reassured me that we have an endangered species tree on our property, if you remember, that they would do their best to protect it, and immediately asked if they could cut 2 branches off of it and did not use an arborist. And now, I don't know, have any of you all seen this front and back, the property? It is, have you seen it?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. But today?
Not today.
Yesterday?
No. Yeah.
Okay. It's a huge undertaking with a basement being dug out for the moving of the house. And that is all being moved to their property, but it again is impacting us. But to stick to the point was I asked for a meeting so that as a group, the people who were going to be affected by this, the Edelsteins are affected, we're affected, I don't know about the people next door, but if it's 2, as residents who pay salaries and who depend on this office to represent us and keep us informed, there was failure in this. And Richard, if I misquote you, please forgive me, but when I asked why there hadn't been a meeting and a conversation on Monday morning, Richard said the developers didn't want one. Well, who do you work for? You know, this was something that should have protected and informed the residents of this, and I'd like to know why there was a failure to carry out the plan and what we can do in the future to ensure that this doesn't happen to you or you or you. Back in the day, I managed the village for 13 years and did everything. I hand-delivered a notice that a permit had been put in. Hand-delivered it. On top of that, then we mailed one. And we never had a project start until that meeting had been held. These people, the project lay dormant for months, as you all know. And then in one day, it was just dynablasted without all of us just standing at the gate thinking, wait a minute. We were not informed of anything about this and had no time to say, hold up, we need answers about this. Not about the building of the houses. It's their property. They can do what they want to. But about how it would impact our property. And the Brotmans next door to us, who can't be here tonight because she's helping immigrants with their citizenship thing, said that their project was stopped in this office and they had to redesign because the Liebmans, whose property this is, had issues about it contributing into the swale that is in our back properties that goes into the Chesapeake Bay. this was a property of magnitude far grander than what's going on Thornapple Street. And Jim Gibson built it, and Jim Gibson is a superior builder. We were, every step of the way, notified what was going on. We never lost a view between us, and our houses became very close together because there was communication. And Heidi said, please point that out for them, that we abut that property. We were given no notice from the village, no notice from the builders, and now we're all pretty upset, and I think justifiably so. We were not represented by our government.
I agree, and I can only apologize for that, Bonnie. I think that it's my fault, because I thought at one point we were routinely having the meetings, but in fact there had been a decision somewhere along the line to not have the meetings anymore, and I don't know when that occurred.
Do you know why that was?
I have no idea why.
My poor recollection is that meetings were being held and nobody was coming. And usually the builder and the architect or the owner would show up and there was nobody here. And that was going on for some time. There was a few other points, is that the village code does not require a meeting. And once the plans are approved by the county and then by the village, the meetings usually are a courtesy to talk about where contractors' trucks will park, that sort of thing, and the impact on the community and how to reduce it or minimize it. And so it was never a requirement. There's nothing that says that there should be a meeting, and since nobody was coming, they were just stopped at one point. Now we have been considering restarting them and have never come to any specific conclusion.
In my day, and I have to cite from 1991 to 2006, I did this. I have a lot of institutional history, a lot. They were held even when no one came. They were never canceled because no one was coming, because it was the right thing to do. Your neighbors need to know.
There were notices sent out, were there not?
Yeah.
We did send out notices in the mail. So we actually, so there was 2 sets of permits that were given. One was back I think September 1st. It might even be up there on the board. But so back in August, when they came and submitted plans, it was the only plans that they had was to take down the chimney and to put a dumpster on the property. And then they had talked about, well, maybe we're thinking about moving a house, but we're not sure yet, so, we'll submit plans when we do. We got the plans, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe at this point. And so then once we did that, we sent out the letters. But when I had talked to the builder, who is probably the woman that your husband had talked to, her name's Jody Longo. Right. We sort of had back and forth conversations about holding a potential meeting, and she felt that she didn't want to have one because she had approached the office back in August, at which point it wasn't our policy to hold a meeting on construction projects. So I told her that they were not required. She'd actually done a building project in Martin's Additions a couple of years ago, I believe, and so she had inquired, are they still required? I told her that they were not, but that any communication with residents is greatly appreciated. So she hasn't wanted to hold one of these meetings. We actually are trying to schedule some sort of venue for residents to talk about the plans and for us to maybe at least present them to people, regardless of whether or not she shows up at this point. And she also has offered to write a written summary of plans for residents that I guess she hasn't sent out yet. And it was my understanding that she was meeting with the abutting neighbors, and for instance, across the street, they had asked that she not park in front of their house, so she had made accommodations to park not in front of their house. So we were trying to work through issues that way, but as soon as it did become clear that residents were expecting some sort of meeting, we tried to get the wheels turning to organize something like that.
That was expected when I showed up at that meeting. When I came here and said, have a meeting, and all of you, evidently maybe Jean discontinued this thing so that there wouldn't be a residents meeting, but when I showed up here, that was your notice, that we should have a meeting, and it was agreed. Why did we stop these? It's a great idea. And I really breathed easier. I had faith in you. And I thought, I'll get these. And as far as these notices go, we got one about a chimney being moved, and there has not been constant communication from this office about what's going on, which is a gross oversight and a shame to the people you represent. It is, to me, negligent. I would have never, ever, ever done this to people. Which brings me to a follow-up point to all of you who live here. What's happening to us can happen to you, and believe me, until you've sat there in this position and not felt like you had an advocate or a sounding board or the respect to say your property is going to be, this isn't, we're getting to be a smaller community by the minute because the houses are so large. And the runoff impacts, never mind the aesthetics. These are real problems. And I think to just say, can't do anything about it, that is really bad for the future of this village and the here and now as well. And I am sorely, sorely disappointed in what this counts, how the nothingness that was done. I asked people when I did my head count tonight, what did you get? And they said the notice about the chimney. And then I think this week I got in the mail, which is, we also, when we gave plans, a copy of the plans to every resident who was, we took care of our residents. And I think, Richard, you may be, one of you were on one council with me for just a couple of months, but it was every citizen of this community counted. And I felt like I took their tax dollars, I worked for them, I respected them, I wanted them to be aware so I could look them in the face. We didn't have an office. They came to my house, which I think is terrific, but, it was a more intimate setting. But I also think when you're working for someone, and it's such a small community, that there's no reason for this kind of thing.
I think that you're laying way too much on Matt.
I'm not putting it on Matt.
Well, you are, and I think that we all bear some responsibility for this.
Right.
That the policies were changed, and we haven't been clear about that with ourselves or with the residents. And we've also had a problem with Jody, who has said, I'm tearing down the chimney, and the next thing we know, she's clear cutting without any notice to us at all, so we could have had a meeting. So I think that there's plenty of room for us to assume responsibility that we missed, but I also think that this particular situation is its own unique situation.
Well, my fear is that it's not going to come unique. As you may know again or remember, Steve Schmall was at this meeting. His property has sold. And on his way out of town, he told me, and that's across the street from us, he told me that it could possibly be a tear down. Finally, he admitted it. He said, I don't know what they're going to do. And he said, there's a big problem with the right-of-way on their side because it's a corner lot.
You're talking about their house now being torn down.
Right. I don't know. He said there is a big possibility of it. I think the builder's living in it right now to maybe get the feel of it. But this is as people want to move closer to town and build on, and I'm only addressing this to you, Matt, because I'm more familiar with your position
Absolutely,
than me. I'm just
absolutely.
trying to tell you this. I'm not fussing.
No, absolutely.
I'm just giving you a little institutional, maybe insight into this as to what's going on. But I'm not fussing. And I do see, Richard, I see your point, and I take it. You're right. Completely.
I'm wondering whether we should, right now we cannot compel anyone to come to a meeting. I'm wondering if we should discuss putting that into the code, that projects of a certain size are required to have a meeting between the representative of the property owner and residents at some point. Right now, we don't have that.
Right. I'll tell you something else. I mean, I look at this in the whole thing. We sit on a double lot ourselves, so I'm walking a thin edge with what I'm saying right here. Because when we sell, unless somebody wants a big old farmhouse, we're going to sell to a developer. So I've got perspective on this
Right.
from both sides.
Well, and I think that those meetings that we've had before, Bonnie, that the first ones after we passed the code, the new building code, people came in expecting to be able to change plans.
Right. Okay.
And then after they discovered that it was a meeting to find out how the project's going to proceed, I think there was less interest in them until something goes wrong. And then, they're all hell breaks loose.
Well, people don't understand that, they can move that house and put 2 stories on it if it's legal. I'm not even talking about, that's their property. And I remember people would say, they're taking my green space. Well, what can you do about that? They're taking my green space. But I know what is legal and what isn't. And yes, I will miss those trees, which Carol, I think, has been communicating with you about. There's been real, according to her, I hate to represent other people, miscommunications about the trees. Carol is afraid that because they have sheared now these trees, that they're going to fall on her house.
And are the trees on the builder's property?
They're on the property, so she can't, she can't, this is one of the issues.
Right.
And I told her, I said, between us and the Brockmans are evergreens, and it went through a lawn renovation that included swimming pool, guest houses, everything, and then a tear down and a new house built, and we never lost a tree. If we all took down trees we're afraid that are going to fall on their houses, we'd have no trees. So, that's how I've, told her. She has this real, that's her thing, that these trees are going to fall on her house.
Well, and we are aware of the tree on your property, too, that has the potential to be damaged during this building process.
The basement took my tree. And behind the house, this is all, can't do a thing about it. They took all the land from where they have made sorry for not looking y'all's direction, where they've made this big basement, which they want to make for this house, and dumped it on their property, but on the roots of my trees. And their heavy equipment has sat on the roots of that tree for ages. I'm sick, I'm sad. I feel violated also by her because she came, butter won't melt in her mouth. A Jim Gibson builder is building a custom home for a family. They're going to do it. You get a speculator builder, a flipper, and they will lie to your face, coming and going, and that's what's happening here.
Okay, well, we are going to do a better job.
That's not my problem.
Right.
Again, I'm trying to stay focused. For your benefit, Richard, or all of you, you get ready to sell your house or have somebody buy the one next door to you. You want to have a say, and even if it's just this, to say, I am concerned by runoff is certainly becoming a huge issue because we're overbuilding small lots. We do need to have these meetings and pay attention to it.
Right.
If this serves any, I'd like next month, tonight, something in the minutes to say, we've been made aware of this and we have got to go back to having these meetings because the houses are bigger than the lots now.
Right.
Drainage is terrible.
Okay.
I love my neighborhood. I want to take care of it.
Right, and I think Arthur's proposal that it be included as part of the building permit is that there be,
Right.
for certain
That's why we
size,
had it.
that we would have a meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
Should we suggest to Village Council that we prepare an amendment to the code to be discussed
Sure.
at future meetings?
Yeah.
And act on
And figure out what, there has to be some kind of a trigger, some kind of scope of the project.
I think maybe part of it is also formalizing when in the process we do this versus releasing the permit, because in this case, I mean, you know, immediately when she got the permit, the work started, so there's a little bit of a...
We did not issue the permit until the meeting was held.
Right.
They had the county permits, didn't mean anything until they got ours.
Right.
And so you do have the power to do this. If it's an interior job, we've got another neighbor doing an interior job. No big deal. But you got another house across the street that this could happen again, and you've got you got a neighbor next door who's going to watch that one equal to or worse than me.
Well, and we've
Because
gone
I'm not
through
paying
it.
attention to what they're doing.
Right.
Let me
We've
get-
gone through it also on Bradley of them tearing down a house across the street from us. But a builder who really worked with the neighbors in terms of parking, and it was not an unpleasant event. It's not ever easy.
Bonnie, for my education, if we were to adopt such an addition, amendment to the ordinances that require a pre-construction meeting, given that the building codes for both the county and the village are not up for discussion. They could be, but they proceed on their own merits. What would you like to hear, or what kind of input would you like such meetings to have?
I think as a collective group, like my concerns are not the Edelstein's concerns or the concerns of the Brotmans at this point, because they only abut the property at the back. I think a collective mind is really important. I think communication, because people don't even think about this, and I think where trees are concerned, which only my own is selfishly so a concern right now. So I'm kind of even taking that out there. People don't understand how beneficial trees are to the value of their property, what they do to them, for them throughout the year, how they serve. And so that might not be something that is on one person's mind, but people like Carol, and I told her, I said, Carol, you don't want those trees down. She said, I want them to cut those trees down. I said, no, you don't. I said, they're insulating your house, they're protecting, you during summer, winter, they're going to offer a little privacy for you. I said, you don't want to cut those trees down. They add property value. And she said, oh, and that kind of, so she could have gotten that from me at a meeting, and I don't know what I've gotten from somebody, but maybe I would have learned. The Brotmans are an interesting point. Heidi was really steam out of her ears, honked off about this, because she said our project was stopped. Somewhere along the line, they had to change their plans because of grading and topography, which sort of is, what's an issue here.
That must have been a county issue, though, because the village doesn't have any issues.
Oversight of that.
Do we have anything on drainage?
No.
It's all county.
But this came, I'm sure, from the Liebmans probably coming here and finding out they should go to the county. And also on Delphille Street, where the Landons live now, they wanted to build this separate house, little house, for their mother who's going blind. And everyone opposed that. And so what they did, they found out, like this piece of property behind these people's house they bought now, they can't build back there because it's within X amount of feet of that drainage thing that goes through, that goes to the Chesapeake Bay. they told Neil, they said, as for now, we're not considering what we're going to do on building back there. And I said, Neil, they can't build.
Right.
Which let them find out. But,
Okay, can we move
anyway,
ahead?
Yes, please move ahead.
But can I say thank you for
So I think
coming?
the sharing of ideas, and maybe if there is a drainage issue, which are, these are becoming huge issues in this village, and not just around, everywhere. It might save you all even some headaches, to nip it in the bud and say, what's your grade? You can see grades, and say, you're going to have a drainage problem, and these people are going to come after you.
Right.
It's true.
Okay.
And even the coordination of parking and issues like that at the outset can be really helpful.
And that's generally what's been happening.
Yeah.
All the neighbors then could agree, how are we going to handle parking? How are we going to handle school buses? I know when Jim Gibson built next door, he had his guys in and out around the school buses. We had a handicap parking situation. They never blocked it.
Doug,
communication.
Doug, you had some comments too.
Just a suggestion that while you're all looking at that, you might want to look at the notification process, because Matt followed the book, and it was by the book that he sent out the notifications. Now maybe you want to look at
the book. Yeah.
Changing that.
Okay.
So as the book currently is, do the notifications not go out until the building permit has been issued?
Yeah, and I guess my guess is the thinking behind that is,
If you don't have a building permit.
well, yeah, not only that, but I mean, if if we haven't issued the permit, they can change it.
Right.
And
Other jurisdictions require that the neighbors be notified prior to the application, at least so they're aware that something's coming. So maybe you want to consider something.
So at the time, well, I don't know how it works here. Do you get notified that you're going to get plans?
The applicant has to show that they contacted or attempted to contact the neighbors surrounding the property, including across the street. So on the application, there's a little diagram of names and phone numbers or emails.
So Bonnie, do you know if that happened?
I'm sorry.
Doug, would you...
Not here, that's in other jurisdictions.
Oh, in other jurisdictions. I thought that was here.
No.
Okay.
No, the only thing you
Then what he was saying was that in other jurisdictions, that they're required, the builder is required to notify people when they apply for, prior to applying for a license or a building permit. Sally?
That may be fine, but I don't trust builders so much.
I don't disagree.
If we can, we're on the municipality, we can notify by the office. And I would suggest, I don't know how many emails you have of everyone, but I think mailing these things is not your most efficient idea. Not yours, not one.
yeah, I understand.
But emails would be good, or even, I don't know how much you all are prone to use the listserv. This is not political, this is not, it's a good neutral thing to say, we've had this done. Some people are not even on internet.
Right.
So, that poses...
We have most of the village emails on our constant contact so that we're able to notify them. So, and I think it can be separated by streets.
The electronics that are of today. Everything really was, you may remember, all of you may remember this, we all did it by phone, the newsletter, or I hand delivered everything.
Right.
And we've got more of a benefit electronically now to communicate with people. And so that would be beneficial, but you just got to cover all your bases.
Yes, I'm saying.
Sally Muir on Turner Lane. I would just like to bring up in the notifying of neighbors should cover last-minute changes in plans as well.
Exactly.
When the house next door to us was mansionized, they were putting in a patio in the back, and suddenly we got a notice that instead of a patio, they were going to put in a deck. But what this means is we're on a hill, and their highest point is up here. Our highest point, anyway, the upshot of this is that now we got the notice, and the next day they were on it. They put a deck that is now, I think it's 5 or 6 feet back from the property line, but it's the deck is level with the top of the fence, and so we now have a deck that's just directly over our backyard, and
You lose that privacy,
well, yes.
among
So
other things.
I think that last-minute changes need to be covered with this.
They
Right.
will also try to sneak things in on you. If you're not watching these plans, I had to go through this, I had to do 2 or 3 stop work orders. The neighbors called me and said, blah, 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 blah. And I got the things, and I kept a file of stop work orders at my house, and I would just dash off and go, stop work.
And we're pretty educated on that process because we've had any number of people who are doing the very thing you are talking about. So Sally, did you have anything else?
Thank
Did
you all so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I just want to know what's going on later in the meeting.
Okay.
I'm interested in something else in there.
Did you see the agenda? Yes. Okay.
May I chime in on this subject?
Sure.
When Bonnie,
Identify yourself.
Lynn Valley, Oxford Street. When Bonnie was involved in the council, some mansionization took place on Quincy, and we received nice notice, substantial set of plans, and a chance to review and make comments, and it had an effect. It made life easier for us because we were able to submit our input. Then some years later, we get a new neighbor on the other side of our driveway who does an extension. And then after the extension, it seems most of the time this neighbor just started work without a permit or approval from Martin's Addition. So now as a result of that, we have a fence, a portion of a fence that is encroaching onto my property of about 13 inches. Across her fence on my property. And that to me is intolerable, and I really don't know how to deal with it. As far as the builders are concerned, they're professionals. They know how to play the game, and I think in perspective, we are all amateurs, still wet behind the ears, and have a very tough time not having them pull the wool over our eyes. And I think we need to be very, very careful and very circumspect and really hold them to the letter of what they say they're going to do, and not after they get their permit then go in there and just willy-nilly do what they want to do.
Lynn, you've met Doug, who does handle that.
He's an expert on wool pulling.
Yes.
And has been on top of issues exactly as you described, where the actual work does not correspond to the plans that have been submitted.
On board in this capacity.
18 months.
Well, unfortunately, we didn't have someone of your scope of intelligence and experience when my neighbor was doing her thing and starting without permits, and then somebody would object. I never objected because I was always the first one accused. So I'm stuck with what I have, and I don't know what's going to happen when I go to sell the house, and there's a fence that's not mine, but it's on my property, and that gets to be a title issue.
Okay. Any other comments? Action on the minutes from the last meeting. We have a motion to approve as sent out.
I will move to approve.
Second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Amendment to the policy for inclusion in Martin's Additions. I just cannot let this go.
This is final reading. Final reading.
We've said 200 words, right? No, 100 words.
100.
So there's samples in your thing of 100 words, 250 words, 300 words, and 500 words that Beth, God bless her, has put together. The 100 words is incredibly limiting, and it almost says we don't want you to send us anything. And I think we can be a bit more generous than that, rather than have the organizations have to rewrite all of their material to get it below 100 words. So 250, I would think is a minimum, and I wouldn't mind 300.
Well, we had discussed this last week.
Right.
Last month. In
I wasn't here, right.
Everyone seemed to agree, except for me, that they liked 100.
Right. Well, we've got a smaller crowd tonight.
And I'm very compliant.
What do you not like?
You want 300, sure.
250 or 300 to you?
I had raised the possibility of the editor editing down to a desired size, but that was thought to be too much of a burden on the editor.
I agree.
So I'm willing to go with a higher amount. I have been all along.
So, Susan, what would you say?
But at the last meeting, this was voted down.
I understand.
We can say 250.
250?
I would go with 250.
Okay, what do we do? A motion to
To
amend?
amend the policy.
And do we have to reintroduce it? Is it a policy?
This is the final.
This is a policy?
Well,
Or is this an ordinance?
it's a policy.
Okay,
Policies that regulate conduct follow the same timeline as ordinances.
Okay.
This one has been well noticed.
beat around.
So this is final passage tonight.
Yes.
So if we change the number to 250, we don't have to start over?
You can adopt that.
Okay, I'm good with 250. So I move that we change it to 250.
I agree with that.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We won't have to have that one on the agenda for the fourth straight week. Discussion of the ordinance to further, regulate the construction of curb guts, driveways, and aprons in the right-of-way. That's listed for me, but I haven't a clue. I'm sure, thank you, Ron.
At the last meeting, a resident provided comments on the confusion that was experienced in having their driveway repaired or not repaired by the village. The village's current policy is an owner is responsible for putting in their driveway initially. Thereafter, the village maintains it. The village will maintain the aprons. For example, when sidewalks and roads are repaved, the aprons are done at the same time so that the materials match, and so we can verify the quality of the construction, because the apron is in the right of way after all, and usually includes, well, not usually, sometimes includes portions of the sidewalk.
So this particular person had asphalted over part of the driveway, right?
Correct. So,
Okay.
yeah, the exception to the policy is if an owner does something non-standard or something better, the village does not maintain that betterment, because the village in the past hasn't want to be responsible for bringing the repair back to the standard that the resident want based on their improvement. So Arthur suggested this be discussed tonight, and that we discuss two options. One, codifying the existing practice as I just described, or two, codifying the existing practice, but stating we'll maintain any apron regardless of whether or not there are unit owner betterments. And so before you have a
Right.
draft that accomplishes both. There's some language on page 4 that's highlighted, and if you wanted to maintain aprons, even if they include betterments, we would just delete that highlighted language.
Okay, I wasn't sure about how to understand your draft here. So, if we maintain anyone to village standards, right,
Starting at notwithstanding.
okay,
Then we could delete that.
okay.
Notwithstanding.
Thank you. Hard to do it upside down.
I'm okay, yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay, so that the highlighted clause here, or sentence, says the village, if there has been a significant betterment, we will not bring it up to the betterment standard.
Correct.
But we could bring it up to a village standard. reconstruct. And that would, in the absence of that line or sentence,
So in the example that we just
right.
had, if we deleted that highlighted
Right.
text, we would have replaced, or we would in the future replace that residence apron that has, you know, the improved surface over the concrete.
Right.
When we
But
have our-
to the village standards, not to the embittered standard.
Well, you could make it say whatever you want, but yeah, I thought the intent was you would replace what the owner put in.
Well,
So if the owner had a fine brickwork sidewalk and apron, if we take the betterment clause out, then we would have to repair with the fine brickwork?
Correct.
and if they put gold leaf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Sally had a comment.
Well, as the resident in question here,
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
the betterment is such a general.
Was a question of whether it was actually better.
We lived in our house for 47 years and close to 50, and we did nothing to our driveway. And at some point, 50 years ago, someone put a little asphalt over the back part of the apron. Part of the apron still the cement, but then they put a little asphalt over that. And I was told that this was a betterment. It looks like hell, but it was a betterment. All I wanted was what Martin's Additions put in next door to us. That was a driveway, an apron that was just cement, and they took that cement out and put in new cement, and that was all I wanted. I did not want asphalt over cement. I just wanted my apron
Right.
replaced. And I was told that Martin's Additions would not pay for that, so we had to pay for that ourselves, and I'm not.
Ron, could we say, just to take out the betterment sentences and just say up above, the village shall maintain and repair and in public sidewalks to village standards, or something of that sort, to village construction standards, or...
Well, I guess the question I have is, and there's probably a third option. You could stick with the current policy of not repairing betterments, but in this situation, if a resident no longer wants their betterment,
Right.
they could be put on the schedule for repair to the village standards the next time around.
Right.
Was that
to village standards?
was
Right.
that driveway going to be replaced? That driveway apron?
No. Oh, no, it could have been repaired.
Do you know what was anything done with it, Sally?
Well, I was told that Martin's Additions would not pay for it. It was up to me to do it, so.
So, okay.
I don't think any work was on any of. I mean, the rest of your apron wasn't repaired either, correct? Like the concrete part of it.
No, the concrete that was there that didn't have the betterment, or the worcement, was not replaced or repaired.
Right.
But back, that's about this far, and then but the rest of it had to be replaced because it was
The asphalt was kind of crumbling, right?
So I got two bids from theirs. One to just replace the apron and one to replace the whole driveway. And my husband's been on my back for years about this because the asphalt was crumbling, and he said, we got to do the whole driveway. But in the meantime, I did get two bids from them. One to just do the apron, which was going to be $3,450, or to do the whole driveway. And we decided to go ahead and do the whole driveway. But to my way of thinking, I have $3,450 of this was something that I would have gotten by Martin's Additions would have repaired for me otherwise. And all I wanted was the standard cement.
And this tarred piece, or betterment, I'm sorry, this betterment piece goes from over the sidewalk onto the, you don't have sidewalks.
It goes from the little bit that they didn't replace, that didn't need replacing, back to the what's it called, the proper property line.
Right. Front line or the frontage or what?
So like a driveway apron will kind of be a trapezoidal shape,
Right,
and then
right.
usually there's a sort of rectangular piece of concrete after that. So in this instance, that rectangular section had just been paved over with asphalt.
Okay, and so they just repaired the apron part of it.
We didn't, I mean, the concrete part of it was fine, so it didn't need repairs.
So they did nothing with it.
Correct.
So,
The rest of it, there's only about this much of the original concrete that's still there. The neighbor's driveway, the whole apron was done from the gutter back to the property line.
okay.
So
We had to pay for from the 2 or 3 feet back to the property line.
yeah, so I guess the question is if there's an alteration there, do we want the village to, if the resident wants the village to repair it, and put in concrete there, even if an alteration was there, do we want the village to go in and do that, or do we want to say hands off because there was an alteration made?
Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm just unclear on whether the cement part was not falling apart and was not replaced.
That's right.
So there was nothing, there would not have been anything scheduled without respect
that right?
to that betterment part.
Well-
I don't understand why, because
I'm just trying to understand.
No,
I don't know.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not, the little bit of, the little tiny layer of asphalt was cracking and a mess, and all I wanted was that whole, the apron, like the apron next door to us, just the whole apron just be replaced.
So the
Right.
this is still in the right of way. So
Right.
So that's yes, this, if even though it was asphalt over concrete, it was crumbling in the right of way.
The
But
asphalt was, or the concrete
the
was?
asphalt was. The concrete that remained was fine. So that's sort of.
How do you know that? Because you couldn't see under it. It was just.
I'm saying in front of it, closer to the street.
Yes,
that
in front
that
of it,
sort
from
of.
the gutter back, that part of the cement
Right.
was all right and was not replaced, and that was fine.
So then the question is,
Right,
the asphalt
right.
sort of behind that or further back, do we go in and repair it, or do we let it be?
Well, so if we added this thing to the first sentence, shall maintain and repair to village standards, but we need to have something there unless the resident wants to do it on their own to a different standard, to a higher standard.
Making some notes.
Yeah.
Perhaps what I'm hearing is leave the highlighted language in, but then add another sentence to the effect of if an owner wants to abandon their betterment,
Right,
then the village will restore the apron to village standards.
right. That would do it. Now the question is, and this may come up in another time, if it's not crumbling or it doesn't seem to need repair to village standards, then we just don't go in if a neighbor calls or a resident calls and says, I want my apron redone. We wouldn't do it. It has to require maintenance and repair.
Right.
In our view.
Yeah,
Right.
and perhaps wait until the village has its contractor
Right.
scheduled to do
Right.
work on that street based on the failures of the
Right.
joining apron.
And see, here's the question that I would have. The contractor might come by and look at your thing with the worstman or the betterment and say, this doesn't require repair, according to our evaluation.
I repaired it.
You paid for it, though.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
paid for it because it needed repair.
Yeah.
And so they took off the betterment or worserment
Yeah.
as the tar or asphalt
They
off.
cut it all out and
But
replaced.
did they replace the cement too?
Yeah.
No, they just put in, we didn't pay for some, we weren't paying for cement, we couldn't afford cement. The 3,500, whatever it was all we could afford.
And that just took the tar off the asphalt off of that was crumbling.
And put in new asphalt.
Oh, they put in.
Oh, and put in new asphalt.
That's what the $3,500 was to replace the asphalt. We would have preferred the cement that we would have gotten if they were replacing the whole apron.
Okay, I think Ron's suggested language might do it. Because it has been the policy in the past, and to maintain the quality and the repair of aprons. So this would not change that policy, it would just change the betterment part of it.
And what would it say?
What's your added sentence there?
If an owner wants to abandon a betterment or alternative materials, the village will replace the same to village standards.
Yeah.
That would have done it for me.
Yeah.
Betterment or Busherment?
You might want to say it's damaged, not just...
This is repair and maintenance.
When village deems appropriate, but I need to massage that language a little bit.
Well, it would be part of maintain and repair. So if it doesn't require maintenance and repair, we wouldn't do it. So if an owner says, I have this old brick thing and I'm tired of it, replace it, but it's still in working order, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
Okay, we'll look at proposed language when Ron brings that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Tiffany, by the way, has just sent me an email to say that she is sick with a cold and isn't going to be here.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that?
Good thing we have a quorum.
Yeah.
Financial report.
Financial report. We're 6 months, halfway through the fiscal year. Everything's looking great. Revenues are higher than expected. Spending is lower than expected. And we are proceeding with our capital improvements. And I think I added one phrase there. Where was that?
The reserves?
Yeah.
Or above that?
We have $1.4 million set aside for these projects. As bids come in and work proceeds, we'll be able to plan for the project completions. And what I mean there is we really don't know what the final costs are going to be. They look like they're going to be within what we have set aside. But, and we have ample funds to cover any overruns if they occur. On the other hand, we don't know. And those set-asides were made without the benefit of any project evaluations.
And just to add one small thing too, is we also still have not received a check from WSSC, so we still are going to get a reimbursement check.
But do we know the amount?
Yeah, we do. Should be about over $100,000.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So.
Okay, a motion to approve the report as presented.
I move to approve the report.
I second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Next thing is manager's report.
Yes. One thing, I guess, office orientation. So, are we still going to be meeting with the designers?
Right.
Okay. So we just need to set up a meeting with the designers to go over the proposal and discuss any concerns. Some of the bigger things that happened administratively were we received bids and went over the bids for the arborist contract, and the village has selected Paul Wolf with Integrated Plant Care as its arborist moving forward. So we're going to continue with Integrated Plant Care, and a finalized contract is being developed. So should have that all in the books fairly soon. On the website, we were down to 3, and then now we're down to 2. So I I have a recommendation, but I don't know if the council wants to look over the two and decide between them. I know that Tiffany had said that she wanted to look over it, so I don't know if we're
your recommendation is based on what criteria or what considerations?
The main criteria was that one of the bidders has more experience in municipal government websites, and the platform that they use is more powerful, more secure, and more easier to use. But Beth and I were sort of talking about it the other day, and it's sort of I'm leaning sort of like 52% one way and 48% the other, so it's not a strong. And I think we'd do well to be with either. So if I maybe wanted to give Tiffany an opportunity if she felt strongly about looking through them to look through it and give her 2 cents on it, and obviously the same to all of you as well.
Were all of the links that you sent around for municipal sites from the one revised?
Yes.
Yeah, they really look great, I must say, but I don't know that, I mean, I liked it, but I didn't actually
Are they the
look
ones
at
that also, I'm sorry, are they the ones that also sent the video about what, with...
That was the other one. That was Data Chief who sent that kind of cute and personalized video about providing it. Revise would cost less for the initial installation, and also part of their contract said that every 5 years they would upgrade our website for us. But they're more expensive on a per monthly basis. So
how much more?
About $70 more per month, but they're but the cost of installation was about a difference of $2,000. So it would take 3 years to see that difference. But I mean, it is $850 or so a year. And Data Chief is local as well. They came in and met us face to face, so I appreciated that personal touch, and I always am, as much as possible, in favor of promoting local businesses.
Is that the one that you prefer slightly?
The 52?
I actually prefer the other one slightly.
Okay. They're in Michigan?
They're based out of Michigan, yeah. But as I said, I would be very happy to work with either. I've had a bunch of conversations with people from both the companies. So
but the 52%er
would be
the
revised.
one with the stronger platform.
That's right. Yeah.
And might give you more latitude in the future.
Yeah. Just sort of off the top of my head, one of the things that popped out when they were doing their presentation is they just quickly added a picture to the site, and they had a little blurb popped up, and then they just moved the picture over, and their platform allowed all of the text to sort of seamlessly work its way around the photo and didn't mess up the formatting at all, and just was intuitively knew how to make it look aesthetically pleasing still.
Somehow I like the thought of that.
Yeah.
And the security.
And the security, yeah. Although yes.
We have to worry about the next village election of some cyber hacking here.
Well, the Russians.
I hope not.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Michigan is closer to Russia.
A great circle route.
Maybe one other piece of food for thought is that Data Chief, though, that's the local one, they would be able to get a website up and running in 6 to 8 weeks versus like 16 to 20 weeks for the other one. So,
Well, somehow we've gone this far.
Yeah, we're not in a rush.
Right. That doesn't seem to me on the surface to be a compelling reason to choose one over the other.
And I apologize if you sent links to Data Chief. Did you?
They had
Or-
a
It
couple,
was a while
like they had
back,
one or
In
two
the RFP,
cases.
or in their response, I think they had, or you had, I can't remember where I saw links.
Yeah, they had one for a local restaurant chain and one for some economic policy group or some. I can't remember exactly what it was. I don't know that they've done a site specific for a local government or municipality yet at this point.
But it would probably be really easy for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the approach would be altogether different than what you would do for a restaurant, for
Research
example.
Institute.
So the Michigan one has less municipal experience?
No, other way around.
Okay, the local one has less municipal?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, so Michigan looks like it's,
yeah.
Has either one done support for the other municipalities?
Actually, no. So one of the Civic Plus is the name of a company that does a lot of the websites around here, and their bid, they have a good platform and everything's good, but they just weren't really even close in terms of cost effectiveness.
This was the one that was way out of...
Yeah, and
line.
I did meet with them just sort of as a courtesy because they do do the websites for a number of municipalities around here, but there's not really a compelling reason to go with them. So that's that.
Okay.
WSSC, the only new update is that we worked, as I said, we worked out an agreement to receive reimbursements for road repairs, and they've also sent us a revised set of plans, and so we started to review them, and we'll probably meet with them again before we finalize.
This is the installation now of sewer lines?
Of sewer, yes, on Taylor Street, Chestnut, Thornapple, Quincy, and Raymond.
Wow.
That'll be in late summer, early fall, probably. That's what I say at this point. Street lighting, I've been checking in on a weekly and monthly basis. It seems like things are moving behind the scenes. I basically pulled exactly what the guy had said to me in his most recent email to me, which was that product numbers were added to the system and they're just waiting for a final check and addition to the design database. And once that happens, they send it to public space permits. So I think we're still on track for looking at April as installation time. Streets and sidewalks. The only really new thing, because concrete work and asphalt work are on hold until the spring. We did receive some complaints about some bigger potholes that may not last through the winter, so we ordered some cold weather patch to patch up some of those.
So who will do that? Will Veers do that?
Wayne will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Wayne and I actually looked over, there's a company that looks like some good cold weather stuff that looks like it's fairly high quality. And
Right.
so.
Is Sally,
Is Turner Lane on your...
Yes. Yep. Like especially right by the curb and the gutter.
Yeah.
and
Bradley
some of the
has some issues
Yes,
too.
Turner and Bradley were two of the two streets that we received
Thank you.
multiple on, so they were sort of what precipitated that. Those are the big items. We just had our bulk trash pickups. The next one's in March, and then just one last thank you to all the residents who did donate to the holiday fund for waste management. They wanted me to pass on their thanks to all of you, and they were very grateful.
how much was distributed this year?
A little over $9,000. So
That's
very
good.
very generous this year.
Okay. Any questions of Matt? Doug, do you want to talk to us about building?
A couple changes from last month. 3414 Cumming. The improvements to the rear of the house have been completed, and I've recommended releasing the building permit However, when they installed the driveway and sidewalk, they didn't do a very good job. There's a couple spalling areas, which means you can see the rocks inside the concrete, so it's kind of chipping away. So I recommended holding off on releasing the bond until the developer fixes that.
This is the public sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Adjacent to the driveway, 5 sections of sidewalk.
okay.
And the homeowner's been notified of that. 3505 Raymond, he's completed all the improvements. The air conditioners have been relocated to the rear, and the building permit has been released. But again, we have an issue of holding on possibly to the performance bond depending on the sidewalk. They did the sidewalk, they put in a 5-foot wide slate sidewalk in the right of way. And I guess Max and I are discussing
We
how we'll handle that.
we did release. We released the
Did release the
bond.
bond.
Yeah.
So, never mind.
Is a slate sidewalk is a betterment to a concrete one? Yeah,
Like a walkway.
Right,
Put in, yeah.
It's more expensive to replace.
right.
And that only other change would be that the Thorn Apple building permit that was issued last week.
Okay.
Questions?
And the GIS, is that under your report? Your
Yeah, it kind of got put on the back burner, but
Okay.
I started putting together an RFP just based on our current contract. So hopefully by next month we should have something out, and I'll start to send around drafts
Okay.
relatively soon.
Okay, anything else? Any more comments? Meeting adjourned.
We're at the end of the book. Thank you.
Boy, I wouldn't have thought the way it started.
Can we just add to that?
Okay.
New terms that you gave me